have a few more people trickling in, so we'll be getting started in just a moment.
Oh, cool. I have some water. I will take other waters. Okay, I guess we're going to get started. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Frances Hellman. I'm a long-standing, I figured I'd actually been 40 consecutive years attending the March APS meeting, literally, from sort of 1980 all the way through to the one we missed in 2020. So this is my meeting, and I'm really happy to be back in person, I have to say. With all the glitches and the things that have come and gone, it's, I don't know, I had one of those moments this morning in a contributed session where 2 of the people didn't show up, the third one was not a talk I even meant to go to, and it was the best talk I've heard yet. So that's what happens with those 10-minute contributed talks. So it's why I love the March meeting. So, I know we've had glitches around it, but, everybody try and take the positive view. It's fantastic that we're here, and it's fantastic that we're getting to interact. So. And I really want to call out the APS staff for all they did to make this possible. So, hear, hear. And we'll do better next year. We will do better. It's complicated, so we promise it will be even better next year. Anyway, getting on to the point of this session. So, I want to welcome everybody to this special session. This got arranged very much last minute in response to the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. Those of you who are unhappy about the lack of the word Russian, I will take ownership of that particular glitch. I personally kind of wanted to call it the Putin invasion of the Ukraine. I feel like there's a whole lot of Russians who are pretty opposed to this thing also. Many of them are going to jail, et cetera, et cetera. So I will fall on my sword for that particular omission, which a lot of people were unhappy about, and we've since corrected it. So the Russian invasion of Ukraine it is. Thank you for joining us. Many APS members, as well as the broader physics community, have reached out to APS regarding the situation in Ukraine and what APS is doing and could be doing in response. These are super important questions. We are a global scientific community. We have Ukrainian members, we have Russian members. And so, what we're doing is incredibly important. There's a boycott going on. How do we deal with the boycott? What's the deal? What do we do? So today's session is designed to really accomplish 2 things. One is to let you know what things the APS is doing. And for that purpose, I have Amy Flatten right here, who's in charge of the APS Office of International Affairs. Close, okay, Amy. And then the CEO, John Bagger. And so the 2 of them are in some partnership, are going to tell you about some of the things that are happening that APS is doing. And then the second purpose, of course, for today is to provide all of you with an opportunity to ask questions, to share stories if that's appropriate, about their colleagues and what things you think we should be doing. So that's really a double-pronged approach. So I think the theory is that we're going to start by telling not me, them, what things are happening, and then we will, I think that'll be relatively brief, 10 minutes, something like that. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. And then we'll go on from there to take questions and input. Does that, anybody have comments on the approach for this session? This was arranged pretty last minute, so. Okay, well with that, I'm turning the meeting over, I think, to John Bagger.
So thank you, Francis. And I'm really glad that so many people are here in person and then also tuning in over the internet to discuss this issue, which really is of critical importance, well, to the American Physical Society, to the physics community, but frankly also to the people of Ukraine and Russia. So thank you. So in times of crisis, times of stress, it's often useful and important to go back to basics. And so I just want to remind you of the mission of the American Physical Society, because it's really our mission and our values that have been guiding our response to this crisis. So our mission, and it's been APS's mission for over 100 years, our mission is to advance and diffuse the knowledge of physics, well, for the benefit of humanity. And how do we do that? Well, of course, we advance scientific discovery and research dissemination. That's relevant to this discussion. We advocate for physics and for physicists, critical to this discussion. And we amplify the voice for science. This mission is outlined in the 2019 strategic plan that was created before I came into this job. I recommend that you read it. It is a great guide to APS, where we're going and what we're doing. And that same strategic plan also discusses our values. And the core values that drive the APS mission, well, of course, the scientific method, truth and integrity. Vitally important as we think about Russian disinformation. Diversity, inclusion, and respect, especially in an audience today when we're discussing a difficult topic. Partnering, cooperation, open collaboration, the international nature of science, speaking out, and then education and learning. And so going back just even a few months before things in Ukraine heated up, the APS Council approved in September a statement on the international nature of science. And this statement, Council-approved statements go out to the membership, so you all had a chance to comment on this statement. It talks about science and how it transcends international boundaries, and essentially it extols the importance of international scientific partnerships, emphasizes that we're one physics community around the world. And then I quote the line in blue, that the APS will continue to take action in support of the human and professional rights of scientists in all countries. So if you ask what underlies our response to Ukraine, it's our mission, our values, and this statement on the international nature of science. So on February 26th, we issued a tweet. It was approved by the board's executive committee on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It's gone through a couple word changes since then, but let me just read it. The American Physical Society condemns the Russian invasion of Ukraine and is gravely concerned about its impact. APS stands in solidarity with the Ukrainian physics community and all people whose safety has been jeopardized and whose homes, families, and careers have been disrupted by the violence. As APS seeks ways to serve its members in Ukraine and Russia during this difficult time, it underscores its commitment to the principles expressed in the APS Statement on the International Nature of Science and International Scientific Cooperation, And APS declares its support for the rights and freedoms conveyed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights for all people. APS calls for a halt to hostilities and a peaceful end to the crisis. So this came out on a Saturday night and was followed up a week later with another APS tweet that the American Physical Society decries Russian military operations upon or near all nuclear facilities in Ukraine, and especially the recent attacks on the Zaporizhzhia power plant. Nuclear facilities contain highly radioactive nuclear material. Attacks upon or nearby any nuclear facility could result in direct damage to its safety systems or indirect damage to its support systems. Such combat risks the release of radioactive material and potential danger to millions of people. The APS underscores its support for the International Atomic Energy and the Director General's call for restraint from all measures or actions that could jeopardize the security of nuclear and other radioactive material and the safe operation of any nuclear facilities in Ukraine. Again, directly related, both of these are related to physics, physicists, the broader context. This one in particular is one where APS has a particular role to speak out. So now let me just step back a bit and talk more about some general perspectives, some general principles that are underlying our response. The first is that the situation is changing rapidly, and so what I tell you today might not be what where we are tomorrow, it might not be where we are the next day, but we're trying to hold true to our mission, our values, our statements. There will be a board executive committee meeting later this week where the response will be potentially recalibrated again, and so your input here will feed into that discussion. But the situation is ever changing in the sense that the legal constraints are evolving with the increasing sanctions on Russia. Our community perspectives vary greatly on engagement with Russia. We have Ukrainian members, we have Russian members, we have people of Ukrainian descent, we have people from Russian descent. Most of both of those communities are deeply aggrieved by what's happening. So we'll continue to assess the needs and interests of the people affected and try to determine as best we can how we can best help in the situation. Our underlying philosophy, and it's been this way throughout the history of APS, back through the Cold War and before, is to ensure and facilitate physicist to physicist communication, again, in line with our mission to advance and diffuse the knowledge of physics. One way we're doing that is we're offering free APS membership and journal access to Ukrainian physicists in Ukraine and those who have relocated. We want them to stay connected as best they can, no matter how horrible the situation they happen to be in, and we will continue to monitor and refine our policies. So how did we come to these statements, these conclusions? Well, first thing we did was to consult with Ukrainian science leaders in the United States. As you know, there's a big Ukrainian diaspora through the United States, Canada, and beyond. So we've talked to some of them. And upon their advice, we wrote letters of support to the Ukrainian Physical Society and the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, whose president happens to be a physicist. Important to just express that solidarity, and so we did. A letter went from our president and from me. And we also connected with the leaders of the Polish Physical Society because they're right next door and they are, of course, much closer to the situation than we are. They're on the front lines with helping physicists in Ukraine and those who are coming to Poland and asking what are their needs, how can APS help, and in particular, could we be more effective partnering with the European Physical Societies than we can be on our own. We also reached out to the European Physical Societies to gauge their perspectives, the European Physical Society, the UK Institute of Physics, the German Physical Society. So there is lots of contact going on between the physics societies in Europe, in the United States, and even more broadly. And we're seeking perspectives from these partners. Like, what do the EU sanctions mean for you? How are they affecting your operations? What are your thoughts on government research restrictions, on government restrictions on collaboration with Russian entities? How can science be a useful tool for diplomacy, and how is your organization serving Ukrainian and Russian members? So again, we are in constant contact. We are listening to what they say. Other facts on the ground that are affecting our response really are the U.S. government sanctions on Russia and Belarus, and because they might limit the ways we're able to actually engage with physicists in Russia and Belarus. For all our physicists to physicist solidarity, it's important that we stay within the boundaries of the law. So we are seeking legal advice, and we might have impacts on APS operations, more to come. But we're really reaching across APS, the whole of APS, to develop a comprehensive approach, because we have interactions on multiple levels: publications, meetings, referees, committees, right? All of those need to be considered. So we're really carrying out a series of steps to determine the legal requirements regarding the sanctions and their effect on APS operations. In the gray areas, we're trying to understand our liabilities, our risks. But our basic principle is that we're trying to continue our engagement as best we can, consistent with the law, in line with our mission. We've received lots of questions on how can people help. Well, again, we are only physicists. There's lots of other people trying to help as well, and so we've reached out to find out what others are doing, and in particular, we've received guidance from the U.S. National Academy of Sciences. And they tell us that the highest priority is support for short-term scholar visits in the region. Not to try to bring everybody to the United States right now, but to provide money to help support the refugee scholars, the refugee scientists in Ukraine. Right? Because many who have left Ukraine don't want to leave the region because their loved ones are still in Ukraine, their relatives, their parents, their husbands, their wives, their children, right? So people want to stay near. Frankly, many of the Ukrainians are expected to stay in Ukraine and help with the resistance. And so it's not really our job to be extracting out the ones who don't want to leave. And finally, efforts to relocate Ukrainians to the United States inadvertently suggest that we expect Russia to prevail. And we were cautioned that that is a morale buster, right? And so the national academies have entered into a partnership with the Polish Academy of Sciences to identify opportunities for short-term scholar visits in the region. They're seeking funding, NAS is seeking funding for stipends, about $6,000 for each scholar who holds a scholar for like 4 months until the situation clarifies. We can figure out what the next steps are. So this is sort of emergency aid. $6,000 provides 4 months of support in the region. And we put this information on our Ukraine Response website. If you still want to bring a scholar to the United States, or you have money that will only allow you to do that, we're encouraging you to reach out to Scholars at Risk. It's an organization that is set up to do precisely that, and they're a reputable group. And please reach out to them directly. So let me conclude, and we conclude by going back to our values. APS, this society, is committed to the principles expressed in our statement on the international nature of science and international scientific cooperation. And again, that line from the statement that APS will continue to take action in support of the human and professional rights of scientists in all countries. Those are our value. We will do our best to support and aid our physics colleagues across the globe as best as we are able. And as I said, the situation is changing quickly, so if you want latest, up-to-date information, I've given you the URL, and these slides will be available after the talk. Thank you very much. And we are now open for questions, comments, reflections. The floor is yours. There is a microphone there. If you have something to say, I encourage you to go up to the microphone so the people online can hear you. And Amy will also be taking comments via Slido from the audience offline, the virtual audience. Thank you.
Thanks for organizing this. I have maybe two comments, two questions. The first one, I understand the rationale behind not inviting necessarily scholars here, but I believe, the Ukrainian people are free. So I don't think that there is any harm in trying to organize something that, for example, would help high school students that now are completely, they're refugees and they're probably brilliant and they were dreaming and hoping to come and do some undergraduate program here. The same with PhD students. So I honestly do not see the harm to offering them an option. It's their choice. It's not our choice where they should be. So maybe what I'm wondering if there is an initiative that is trying to help high school students or undergrad students. And that was my first question. My second question is, you said that we are supporting scientists over all the world. You also probably know that 400 scientists signed an open letter of support for the war that, Putin is, having with the, we all see the news, we understand what's happening. So what about those scientists?
Sure.
Is this on? Okay. So thank you for those remarks.
Oh, there will be no answer, right?
At the moment, I guess I should say that at the moment, we're doing what we've said here. That could evolve with time. You make some great points. We're here to listen.
Let me clarify then. Those 200
Just a minute. I'd like to finish the first question. So thank you very much. As I said, we're here to listen, and so we will certainly take what you say into account. As far as the letters from the Russian scientists who are supporting the situation, again, it's, as you know, it is super complicated. We do not know who really who believes those, who's being forced to sign those letters. We have a tradition of not supporting boycotts in this country, from American Physical Society. This has been the tradition throughout many other terrible situations in history as well. So again, the board is reconsidering it. Maybe what this is so bad will change, if they'll change, but at the moment that's consistent with our tradition.
All right, so I'm obviously biased. A Russian name. Grew up in Ukraine all my life. Very difficult. Those 200 people, they are not just random scientists. Perhaps you are aware, those are rectors, the presidents of the most prominent universities. Not just anyone, okay? Just a clarification. I wonder, so APS has a 100 years old history, right? I wonder if you look back, I actually don't know what the answer is, like when Germany invaded Poland, right? What was the response of APS to that? It would be interesting to look at it and then see how, now knowing the history, how it happened, how you would change that response. You still have a chance to change your response to this situation, knowing the history. So it is absolutely, maybe we grew up in this bubble of liberal physicists and we think that it's the same across the board. It's not. If you think that Russian-born scientists overwhelmingly reject Putin's war, even those who have positions here in the United States, you're mistaken. My anecdotal evidence is probably 25% are pro-Putin. I'm not saying that we should start some kind of witch hunt or anything, but you know, you have a friend, ask what's the position, and if you hear something like, "Oh, it's so sorry, situation is horrible," sometimes it means, "Oh, I wished Ukrainians would give up." That's my comment.
Yeah, thank you. It's a sobering. Yeah. You raise sobering points, and history, of course, will judge how we respond. And yeah, you raise sobering points, and we will think about that.
Every morning I start my morning, almost 3 weeks, with a couple of hours of sad things. So I call to my cousin. She's under Russian bombs in a small city near Kharkiv. And trying somehow to provide some moral support to her. 3 days ago, she sent me a text saying there'll be a new attack. Take care of my daughter. You are the only one who is left. I also called to my best friend. He's a physicist in Institute of Geophysics of Russian Academy of Sciences. My immediate reaction was ask him to come to Florida. He said, no. How can I come if I send my son to the war? He's doing right now, he's volunteering, he's old to serve in the army. But what he told me, that all these programs with small amount of money to support probably will go to nowhere. Because everyone from 18 to 60, they went and served for the army. We tried to locate students from Kyiv State University. We have a couple of colleagues from mathematics department from there, and try to locate students who are fleeing to Poland, maybe to bring here to the States to continue the program. We failed to find them because all the boys are in the army, girls probably as well. So I asked my friends, so I asked him, so today will be a special meeting at American Physical Society. What do you think, how we can help you? And he said the same words that the president said, send us arms. No science right now, no time for science, we cannot concentrate, we cannot do science. Send us arms. And I think that as American Physical Society, I think that the only thing that we can do right now is to talk to our Congress people, to our senators and representatives, to provide more military support. I personally sent the money to a special fund to support the Ukrainian forces. And also, I think as a physical society, we somehow support some national initiatives, for example, for immigration, for PhDs, and so on and so forth. But I think that the leadership of our society should think how we can do this politically correct. I'm not sure what does it mean politically correct, but to provide strong support in terms of military support of the Ukraine, because they're not going to give up. So it means that they're going to be decimated. So we're expecting multiple civilian deaths because Putin is not going to stop. So this is the only thing that we can do, talk to our Congress people to provide more military support, more humanitarian support for them, and maybe go to the streets to show our government that they're not afraid of the high oil prices. So this is something that they're fighting for us, for our world, for the future of our world.
Thank you.
Do you want to respond? the previous comment?
I'm not sure there's a response. It's a war. At some point, of course, science, it's a war. At some point, we may all have to make decisions for ourselves personally, and like people are doing in Russia and Ukraine, and it's a sad stories.
Not a sad story, it's an ambition.
It's a what?
I've got it.
Let's not just tone down what happens.
I can add one more piece of information in response to something that you had said about encouraging our members of Congress to support visits here. And the APS, Office of Government Affairs, has worked very hard, and the APS has joined with 34 other organizations to send a letter to our government leaders to support many of the things that you've talked about, making it easier for Ukrainians to stay here if they're already here and to come here if they would like to. We recognize that, and consequently, that's why we've joined with the Academy to encourage support for opportunities that are in the region. But we also recognize that this will be a long-term effort, and consequently, we'll do what we can over the long term, even if people aren't coming in the near term.
Okay, then I will proceed. I want to contextualize a bit more one word that was mentioned in the slides. My name is Andrei Kleshin. I'm a physicist at the March meeting. I'm a national of Belarus. Belarus is, to those who forgot the map, is directly north of Ukraine. And it is from Belarusian territory that one vector of the Russian invasion has started. And I have close personal ties to Ukraine as well, and I appreciate all your concern. But I want to bring your attention to also what is happening in Belarus, because it is an essential part of the story. It is part of the problem. It will be part of the solution. If we want to stop the threat of Putin to Ukraine, to Eastern Europe, to the rest of Europe. Belarus is a police state that has been run by a dictator for over 20 years. In the most recent cycle of repressions, following the elections in August 2020, that's 1.5 years ago, we have 200,000 refugees from Belarus, 40,000 people arrested, over 1,000 political prisoners sitting in jail right now for their political beliefs, hundreds of fired professors, hundreds of students who were expelled. The progressive and democratic part of Belarusian people have been fighting this dictatorship for as long as I remember, for as long as I've been alive really. And they were very inspired, including by the Ukrainian example, including by the previous response during previous Russian offensive and in 2014. If democracy won in Belarus in 2020, this war would not be possible as it is now. There will not be invasion from the north, at the very least. But instead, Belarusian government has opened its borders to Russian army with no fighting. Russian army just entered, and then it attacked Ukraine from the north. The Belarusian people are on the side of Ukraine. The people are on the side of Ukraine. They're donating money, they're helping with humanitarian aid. There are many Belarusian people who are taking arms against Russian soldiers on Ukrainian soil right now. And they're also fighting to free their own country from the dictator who is propped up by Putin, frankly. This fighting is not as clear-cut as in Ukraine. In Ukraine, the government and the people of Ukraine are on the same side. They're both against Russia. The Belarusians are fighting against their own government. But the fates of both countries are linked. They're both part of a larger struggle to be in a free country, to live in a democracy, to be against Putin's fascism, kleptocracy, and imperial ambitions. So when you consider how to help Ukraine or pay attention to the current developments, please keep Belarus in mind, and all the same resources also need to be offered to the displaced scholars in Belarus as much as we can do it. If we support free thought and free academia in Belarus, and in Ukraine, they would be able to strengthen democratic institutions and bring about positive change. I don't know what else to say. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you. Absolutely. I mean, the fact that Belarus was not mentioned on my slides is an oversight, and I will correct it. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you.
your thought. We have we have a question that's come in from the Slido, and we'll go for that.
Yeah.
first.
One of our participants through the virtual platform asked, could APS convene a welcoming hub virtual meeting with Russian and Ukrainian physicists together as a way to clear up disinformation? I assume that the APS and NAS advice encompasses interactions with Russian physicists, not just Ukrainians. Want me to take it?
In principle, I mean, that's a, yeah.
That's something that we could, consider whether the timing of that, when that would be appropriate, is something that we would have to, confer with the National Academy of Sciences. But I certainly think that we all respect the opportunity for science diplomacy and keeping lines of communication open.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lesia. I'm from Lviv, western part of Ukraine. I was born there, and right now I'm pursuing PhD in biomedical engineering in Stony Brook University, and came here as a DBio member. I also happen to be an active duty communication officer to the armed force of Ukraine, and on behalf of the entire Ukrainian army, I would like to express our gratitude to the United States and the scientific community, the entire community of the United States. Their help and support have been unmatched, absolutely. I would like to address to all the APS members and participants of this conference with a certain announcement to the amounts that it would be appropriate. So 2 years ago, I started a stipend among the undergraduate researchers in Ukraine. In 2020, we started a Chornobrivtsi stipend, marigold in translation, so the flower marigold. It funds students from Ukraine who pursue research, independent research within their laboratories related to physics, biomedicine, medical physics, and other areas of research that APS also shares. And in 2 years, we've been able to collect and unite researchers from 24 academic institutions in Ukraine. This was a huge support. I'm very proud of every team member that contributed to it. And right now, the situation has obviously changed. Specifically, 2 of our institutions in Zaporizhia and Kharkiv cities have been destroyed. The members fled Ukraine because of obvious reasons. One of the key goals of this stipend was to motivate the students of Ukraine pursue research in Ukraine and develop it within the Ukrainian territory. Right now, in the light of current events, in the light of war that Russia wages against Ukraine on Ukrainian territory, the main thing that most Ukrainians are thinking about who are not directly involved in the conflict is the future of the country. So the youth, science, jobs, economy, the development of the country, rebuilding the infrastructure, and trying to, however painful it sounds, to return the people who fled the country to return to their homes and maintain the economy. So my suggestion is basically our stipend that I helped found decided to open a new outlet of funding that would be similar to a United States DoD grants, Department of Defense, that fund research aimed at strengthening the national security projects and research projects that would promote different army, military, social security, and defense projects. If there is a way, I'm not talking about organizational support, but if there is a way of personal donations that could support this outlet of the stipend, it would be, I would really appreciate the opportunity of sharing this information. And to everyone who wants to, who would like to contribute or share some advice or examples, if you guys have started anything similar, please reach out to me. I'll be in the back. And if I could leave any contact of the stipend, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
So thank you, and please be sure we get the information. Thank you very much.
I will talk about values of American Physical Society, which is an international society with very respectful values. They include cooperation of people of multiple nationalities and respect. What is going in Ukraine right now is not right. What was going in Ukraine before the invasion was also not right. There was a growing amount of hatred in Ukraine. People were murdering each other. People were killing each other. Yes. Before the invasion, Ukrainian conflict had more than two sides. There was Lugansk, there was Donetsk. Donetsk and Lugansk are different entities in the conflict. There was Ukraine. Right now, Russia is one more entity, so right now there are 4 entities in that conflict. And people hate each other. This hatred is not nice. This is not nice for us. We have a choice. Will we proceed towards making peace, towards reduction of hatred, or will we fuel that hatred? And yes, we have ability to fuel the hatred by providing weapons to people who hate each other and kill each other. If we give them more weapons, then probably more people will be killed on all sides of the conflict.
Hey, we excuse me. Excuse me.
We can't. Sorry, we have to, there has to be a rule of.
Come on.
Hey.
Let's go.
Hey,
we're letting people talk.
I don't think that it would be absolutely right to say that one side of the conflict is absolutely right and another side of the conflict is absolutely wrong. That's not the situation.
Yeah. We have to have an agreement. There has to be an agreement that people can speak.
And right now,
there really has to be.
Around me, inside the United States, I don't think bringing hatred from Ukraine to the United States is right. I am against that hatred, and I think we should reduce the amount of hatred one way or another. You saw an outburst of hatred, and that is not right. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have another question coming from the Slido, but I ask people to respect other people. Everybody has a right to speak. You don't have to agree with them, but they can speak.
So we have a question from the audience that's participating virtually. And the question is, can individual APS members contribute to the scholarship fund for short-term scholar visits? And the answer to that is, in conversations with the representative of the Academy, he said it's difficult for them to process small contributions on the order of $100 or small individual donations, but if the community got together and provided a lump sum, that would be possible, and we can explore also creating a fund.
Yeah, so we're just, I mean, again, the point of this is to gather ideas, and so maybe we can gather a communal fund or something like that that then could be donated in a larger lump.
So thank you for the suggestion. We'll take that under advisement on how we might be able to do that.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Becker Sharif. I'm a graduate student from California. I wanted to I come from a family of refugees, and I kind of wanted to bring the community's attention to. I appreciate that we are, or you are, trying to help the scientists and whatnot. However, the scientists have other things on their mind as well right now. There's in survival mode, they have family, they have whatnot. And this is just something that I wanted to kind of bring your attention to in that I feel like we should be offering more than just helping the scientists. In addition to that, I wanted to kind of comment on one thing that was said earlier in that I've seen it where people kind of look at, it's been justified that, okay, we can invade this region because they're all terrorists, but that's not the case. You kind of have to be there. I say that from a Middle Eastern perspective. A lot of people have tried to invade the Middle East in the name that they are a certain, they have internal conflicts and whatnot, but that's not true, and it's truly not true in the Ukraine as well. And I kind of just wanted to say that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know where to start. Hello, everyone. My name is Katerina Pistunova. Right now, I am a graduate student at Stanford. But I was born and grew up and spent my whole adult life in Kharkiv, in Ukraine, a city that has recently been heavily bombed, where the building of my university, where I also studied physics, has been pretty much destroyed. I have not had any contact with my physics teacher, who inspired me to go into physics and to apply to colleges in the US, and thanks to whom I'm here right now. My mom has fled our house that we have been building since, I think, 2004, and they finally could move in 2018 after many crises in Ukraine. Our city is Ukrainian right now, but on the northern part of on the northern part of my city, where my mom used to live, that place is occupied, and our neighbors who stayed there and who only decided to leave when a bomb blew their rooftop off were told to turn. They were trying to leave. They were on the road, but they were told to turn away by Russian soldiers. Eventually, they had no food and they had no water, and they couldn't go anywhere apart from Russia, which they did, although we have not heard from them since. So this is just my personal story. My dad has been volunteering with the Territorial Defense Forces since 2014, and 2 weeks ago when the war started, I was given a group meeting where I was practicing my March meeting talk, and that was a very stressful time for me because I wanted it to be really good, and I was very focused on it, and I didn't sleep. And then when it was finally over and people said that it was good, I was thinking, all right, now I can go back to bed and relax and just have a good day. And then about 3 hours afterwards, I get probably the scariest message that I've ever received in my life. My mom was texting me that we're being shot at. Dad left to the military base. I'm in the basement. We have no electricity. And obviously I called her and I was trying to calm her down, but under the table my hands were shaking so much that I could barely hold still. And at the time I was very upset. I didn't know what to do. I was disoriented. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus on anything. But over time, I got tired of feeling this helpless And this gave way to desire to do something. And I think many people think that, oh, we're not the president, we're not the institution, we're not billionaires, we can't do anything. Well, that's obviously not true. We at Stanford have already fundraised about 100,000 just on Facebook, and about 100,000 more through private people of medical supplies. And we have a volunteer from medical school who actually was supposed to fly today, but I believe he'll fly a few days later to Ukraine, to Poland, to the Polish border with a plane full of medical supplies to distribute them. I would like to take this opportunity to advertise our fundraiser as well as our website that Stanford students have created. It's called standwithukraine.how. Standwithukraine.how. I think it's pretty easy to remember. And there we provide very concrete actions that any individual can do, from donations to writing letters to senators with examples, to writing letters to CEOs to ask to support Ukraine and stop supporting Russia. So I encourage everyone here to take a look at the website or other website that they have found and follow some of the advice, at least donations. That's the easiest each individual can do, and that's what really helps right now. As for what APS can do, I have 2 suggestions that I've just been discussing with my friend who used to work in the Ministry of Science in Ukraine and is now a visiting scholar at Stanford. And apart from the things that have already been mentioned and what APS is doing, one other thing that I think is very doable is encouraging, I know that it's been mentioned, but encouraging some stipends for Ukrainian scientists to come to US and also maybe to do remote work because, as you mentioned, a lot of people cannot move right now, maybe some of them cannot leave the Ukraine, but a lot of theoretical work can be done online. And as you know, a lot of brilliant theoretical physicists are in Ukraine right now and they cannot leave, and they would really appreciate an opportunity to work and collaborate with some institutions here online. And then another thing which I know you might find controversial, but which I think I and many other Ukrainians support, is that you have to cut ties with Russian educational institutions. I know it might be painful for Russians to hear, but I really like the analogy with Germany. Would you, looking back on the situation, support scientists in Germany at the time, even if they were not supporting the regime? Because by supporting Russian institutions, you're supporting the Russian government. And I firmly believe that no peace can be achieved while Putin is in power. And to stop that, we need to stop supporting the Russian government in however way we can. So cut ties with Russian institutions, maybe provide some stipends or some opportunities for individual Russian scientists who support freedom and democracy and who want to relocate, but cut ties with the institutions and with the government. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Taras. I'm born in Ukraine from the small city of Uzhhorod, which is bordering with the European Union. I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow at University of Alberta, and I don't want to copy and just repeat the same things which was done over and over. But first of all, I would like to thank APS community to supporting Ukraine and organizing this event. It's very important. And I firmly support the idea of supporting Ukrainians with stipends and providing them funding for them to be able to do their research in Ukraine right now. And just to cut it shortly, what I would like to APS to do is to help clarify things for Russian scientists and to help guide them and give them right information from the trustful sources, because it's educational institution and they must be educated, because clearly from my standpoint right now, Putin is winning informational war. On the ground, they're badly losing. And I feel very sorry for Russian soldiers which are dying in Ukraine right now. But the more will die if the war which Putin waged in information front would not be confronted accordingly. We need to convince Russian people that it's wrong We need to convince scientists that this is wrong. We are peaceful people. We want to do science in peace. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Freericks. I'm a professor at Georgetown University. I'm also on the APS Council. I represent DCOMP and GDS. From a personal history, I actually have roots that go back into Russia in the Tsarist times, and my family has been either entrapped or have escaped the communist rule for over a long period of time. I have personally visited Ukraine over a dozen times. I have a number of colleagues there who I work with actively, and I really think APS should be doing a lot more than what you have shown us today. We are at the very most a society of humans, and I think everyone here can see what is right and what is wrong in this conflict. And we should be telling people about this. We should avoid the fact that we want to be somehow politically pure and not have any political side to our actions. I think it was Martin Luther King who said, "Those who remain silent in the eyes of oppression support the oppressor." And I don't want APS to be doing that. So I hope we can find some more powerful ways that this organization can support the people of Ukraine.
We've gotten a couple of questions in about what can APS be doing, engaging with Russian scientists, and like, are we, for example, are we offering free membership to Russians that have fled the region, and what is our engagement with Russian authors, meeting attendees, members in the region, and I think that is a question that we are already, and we will. That is sort of the topic that is hanging out there to be thought about, and so I don't have a good answer to that right now, but it is something we are thinking about, and hopefully we'll have an answer. And as far as what other things APS can and should be doing, well, that's partially why we're here, is to figure out what things we can and should be doing. And this doesn't have to be the end of this. I mean, we're probably going to have to, we're out of time today to actually just, there's an award ceremony, and the awardees are going to be unhappy if John and I are not there to hand their awards. Now, it's obvious, award ceremony, war. What can one say? On the other hand, the awardees are going to want John and I there to recognize their accomplishments. So we are going to have to call the session to an end.
But we're here all week. You know what we look like. You know where to find us. We're happy to keep talking. And thank you so much for being here today, and especially to the speakers, because it's not easy to say some of those things. So thank you.